My Grandma by Tyler Wynn.
My grandma's name is Mai Huynh. She was born on October 15, 1942 at a small village in Vietnam. She finished high school in Vung Tau. Then she went to Saigon, which is now known as Ho Chi Minh City, for college. She worked as a peace cashier for the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. At that time, she was about 22 years old. She married a Vietnamese man and had my oldest uncle named Lam. 2 years later, they divorced. In 1965, she met Mason, who was the military police for the U.S. Army. They loved each other and eventually married. Then my dad was born in 1967, who was named Lee. But my grandpa, Mason, moved back to the USA. From that moment on, my grandma and my dad never saw him again. All they had left of him were pictures and memories. My grandma worked really hard to support the family. Then in 1971, she married a U.S. soldier and had my youngest uncle named Joey. Bonner, or Huy in Vietnamese. Then the Vietnam War finally ended in 1975. My grandma lost a house due to Viet Cong, so they moved back to the countryside. My dad was about 2 years old when that happened, so you could infer that he was terrified. They lived in the countryside for 4 long years. The economy is very difficult for my family. My dad couldn't go to school anymore because he had to stay home and work with his mom to earn money. In 1979, my grandma had obligation to marry another man, but this man, however, was rude and cruel. He said if my grandma doesn't marry him, he'd put the whole entire family in prison. The U.S. government had an open policy which will let all U.S. employees to go back to the USA. Mai is very lucky to get chosen with her family, so in 1989, they all went back to the United States of America. They worked at a restaurant until they all had enough money to be a thriving family. All of her kids moved somewhere else and had their own kids. My grandma retired when she was about 55 years old. Now she lives in California with grandchildren and some of her kids.